In 1944, Dr. Eric Williams, the first Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago, published a book entitled Capitalism and Slavery, which laid out the blueprint for the Caribbean reparations movement. Sir Grantley Adams, a descendant of enslaved Africans in Barbados, as Prime Minister of the West Indies Federation from 1958 to 1962, argued that economic justice was inseparable from human rights. In 1971, Dr. Walter Rodney published his seminal work entitled How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, which became foundational to the global black reparations movement. In 1982, Dr. Omali Yeshitela published Stolen Black Labor, and the International Tribunal on Reparations for African People in the United States was formed. In 1983, Dr. Manning Marble published How Capitalism Underdeveloped Black America, and COBRA, the National Coalition of Blacks for Reparations in America, was founded in 1987. In 1989, U.S. Congressman John Conyers sponsored H.R. 40, the Reparations Study Commission legislation. Douglas Belchior, co-founder of Coalizão Negra por Direitos in Brazil, organized a coalition of over 200 organizations to lobby governments and international bodies for racial justice and reparations. Reparations movements were organized in the Caribbean, Brazil, Colombia, Mexico, Venezuela, and many other countries throughout the African diaspora. In 1991, African heads of state and diaspora leaders met in Abuja, Nigeria, and formally resolved to seek reparations for the untold damages of the slave trade and colonialism. In 2001, over 170 UN member nations sent 2,500 delegates to Durban, South Africa, to participate in the UN-sponsored World Conference Against Racism. The Durban Declaration identified slavery as a crime against humanity and called on governments around the world to establish human rights institutions and implement programs of reparatory justice. The Durban Conference identified victims of race-based slavery, racial discrimination, and colonialism, and set a global movement in motion. The UN established 2015 to 2024 as the first international decade for people of African descent. On March 25, 2026, a coalition of 123 UN member states led by the Africa Group passed a landmark resolution declaring the trafficking of enslaved Africans and racialized chattel enslavement of Africans as the gravest crime against humanity, thus establishing an international consensus that racialized chattel slavery is jus cogens. In other words, the defenses of statute of limitations and the defense that slavery was legal do not apply, since this crime is so inherently evil that no law could legitimately be made to make it legal. Any such laws would have automatically been void as against humanity. The Africa Union has officially designated 2026 to 2036 as the Decade of Action on Reparations and African Heritage,